House prices crash by up to 33%. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I want to have a look at an article discussing, suburbs where house prices are crashing significantly. But before we do that, let's look at some asking prices. We bring up here in Sydney and we'll just reload this. This is SQM's asking price data. And we can see, there you go, how high they've gone. Let me just full screen it so I can see it. What are we at? All houses, $1.7 million. 3 beds, $1.5 million. If we bring up Melbourne, we can reload that. And you can find SQM have the data there. The weekly asking prices, all houses, 1.1. 3 bedrooms, $1 million and change. There you go. And my city, Brisbane, that's had the most drastic increase. You can see here, all houses, 946,000, 3 bedders, 800 grand. But, we just go back here, 2021, what's this, 3 bedders, in 2020, 570. And now they're $800,000. So that's just kind of crazy growth in Brisbane. I've even seen it around where I live. It's insane. It is insane. So with that in mind, with what we're getting here from the SQM data, let's have a look at this article from The Guardian. And we'll bring this up here. So, house prices in some of Australia's most affluent suburbs have suffered the biggest fall from the pandemic peaks, with some high-end houses and apartments losing more than a quarter of their value. So, here's the question. Is this based on crazy mania sales figures or asking prices during the mania when people were trying their luck? Or is it a mania purchase and now a post-mania sale where the person has actually lost that money? That's the question I put to you, because you can see here the average asking prices for a 3-bedroom house is still insane in Brisbane compared to what it was a few years ago. Are these just the outliers that they love to talk about in the media? Remember when we were looking at article after article about people paying $200,000 over reserve just to get a property, or these huge properties that have gone up insane amounts, but they're luxury properties at the upper end of the market that don't change as much? So we'll have to see. Let's have a look here. It's always good for a video. So nationwide data, which data? Shows that many of the same wealthy areas that enjoyed exuberant price runs in the years leading up to and the initial period of the pandemic have now retraced the furthest. But are they at the pre-pandemic levels? Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of people that want a correction in house prices in Australia because house prices in Australia are just nuts. No longer can you buy a house on one income. The only people that do that are ones that live at home, buy a shit box and ride it up and then leverage that to the next and the next and the next. You need a couple now. You need to come together to do it. But the problem is we've got a housing supply issue, so rents are going up through the roof. Population growth isn't declining at all. It's just going to make it even harder and harder. And, as well, we've got a construction apocalypse, so our ability to meet supply is tanking. And the media is now full of stories about people with half-finished houses. So established houses are going to be more attractive. And we also have legislation changes making housing more expensive to build. So the existing stock, again, is more attractive. If anyone tells you there's a plan to make housing more affordable in Australia, tell them it's bullshit, okay? Because it is. It is just bullshit. So the falls are most pronounced in Australia's 3 most populous cities, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, but also noticeable around the country, according to research compiled from Guardian Australia by property analytics company CoreLogic. The most expensive end of the property market tends to lead both the upswings and downturns, the research director at CoreLogic, Tim Lawless, said. Housing prices across the country have fallen 8% from the pandemic peaks, according to the Reserve Bank. Similar trends are evident in comparable markets around the world, with prices in New Zealand falling 16% after rising interest rates cooled demand. Yeah, but how high did it go? You saw Brisbane from about 600 grand to over 800 grand for a 3-bedder. Oh no, you're losing 8% off that at the top. It's still crazy. You've got people who've been waiting on the sidelines waiting to jump in on the market. They're trying to time the market with a deal. The problem is that there's a whole lot of people who make quite logical arguments for why a property is at a peak and why it will decline in value. But then the rules change. What's more likely to happen? That the government will allow a significant property price correction, or there'll be interventions that will change the rules and we'll get stimulus? What do you reckon? Many suburbs in Sydney's eastern suburbs and northern beaches have seen significantly high declines in apartment prices. The Melbourne suburbs with the biggest decline in apartment prices are clustered in the inner east and west. Australian state and territory capitals that did not see the same heady rise in recent years as homes in the eastern seaboard include Perth and Darwin, and have recorded modest falls in response to rising borrowing costs. And we can search on their app. The areas recording the largest declines don't necessarily indicate where mortgage stress is more elevated, said Lawless. While there will be some examples of stress, in many cases, these same areas arguably overshot fair value through the recent upswings and have moved through a correction. Okay, so we're not talking about mortgage stress here. We're not talking about people forced to sell. We're talking about the mania coming back to reality. There are subtle differences in the suburbs that saw the largest declines in apartments and house prices. Suburbs that saw large declines in house prices were even more concentrated in more socioeconomic well-off areas, according to Guardian Australia analysis, using ABS's index of relative socioeconomic advantage and disadvantage. And while the biggest declines in Sydney apartment prices were clustered in beachside suburbs, the suburbs with the largest house price declines are dotted around Greater Sydney. City edge suburbs, Redfern and Newtown, lost around 1/4 of their value from peaks hit in late 21 and early 22, but so did Kilcare in the north and Tareen Point in the south. In Greater Melbourne, some coastal suburbs on the Mornington Peninsula recorded near 20% falls from peak pricing. Yeah, but it's the Mornington Peninsula. Isn't that like, you don't live there normally. Isn't it a holiday destination? The southern areas of Brisbane also experienced steep drops, Fairfield seeing a decline of 33% from its recent highs. The data has also been released at a pivotal time in the property market, with price falls moderating and in some cases reversing in early 2023. There are mixed data and forecasts predicting what will happen next. On the one hand, a worsening housing shortage is contributing to rising rents and underpinning a view from some analysts that prices will start rising again due to strong demand. But a series of rapid-fire interest rate hikes is also putting pressure on many mortgage holders, with a sizable cohort at risk of becoming forced to sell in a scenario that would depress prices. I don't think we're going to see people forced to sell. I think we will see people do everything necessary to stay in their house. Because in the long term, you're better off fighting and keeping your home than struggling in a rental market where you're probably paying more than your mortgage anyway. It's not a win-win situation, guys. This is just what Australia is going to be like for the foreseeable future. Known as mortgage prisoners, more than 15% of indebted homeowners can't refinance because they no longer meet lending standards, Reserve Bank data shows. Yeah, that's because APRA, with their buffer requirements, has made it so people can't get a cheaper loan and pay less. I remember when I was consolidating mortgages I was using the equity growth on this house to pay off a loan on another house. And I was consolidating everything. And the mortgage broker at the bank just couldn't understand it. Going, we can't do this. Because I'm a small business owner, it makes it more complicated. And I'm going, this is going to cost me less. It'll be cheaper. What are you talking about? It's not that hard. Oh, boy. So people are going to be screwed over by the systems put in place to protect the banks. And the banks will make more money out of it. Many of these households are also stuck with loans at uncompetitive interest rates and may be in homes worth less than they bought them due to the recent price fall. So there's no way they're going to sell if they have to. What are you going to do? Are you going to sell for a loss and maybe crystallize that loss? Or are you going to hold on and keep going? Now, this is different. If you're a owner-occupier, it's going to be a different story to an investor. An investor may just write it off and keep going. But rents are going up. They're going crazy. Historically, financial stress is most evident across mortgage belts, where first-home buyers and low-income households are concentrated, according to CoreLogic. However, through the recent downturn, it has been the outer-fringe housing markets that have seemed to have held their value better relative to more expensive markets, Lord has said. Whether this is simply a lagged effect is yet to be seen. So there we go, everyone. Let's have a bit of a talk about this one, eh? So there we go. 33% fall in Fairfield. I suspect we're just seeing some drastic movements in some of the more remarkable properties on the market. It's not a sector-wide shift. The people, they're saying the whole property sector is falling and falling and crashing. We're not seeing it yet. We're not seeing it in the data. And there's so much out there. So, pillars of property support, guys, that are keeping it up. You tell me. What do you reckon? We'll have to see. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out HeiseBim and Heise Does. And if you're a fan, you can support the channel via YouTube or Patreon. Use our referral links, buy our pocket squares, or call us if you need an architect. Take care. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.